Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Mad Dialogue with me, Michelle.
Me, Skylar.
I hope everybody's doing well and you're having a good week so far. So, this week, I came across a caption on a video and it said, so is a woman wrong for keeping a baby that a man told her he didn't want? And it shows this man buying expensive baby items like a carrier and car seat and pushchair and so on and so forth. So let's just see what a couple of people have said in the comments, and then I'll ask you what you think and so on and so forth. That one's a bit It says, someone said, sign over your parental rights and don't be showing up like a proud father when she raises that kid to greatness. Another person said, if he didn't want kids, he should have used protection. Somebody else said, I think this is a man. Let me just check because no, it's a woman. She said, if you knew you didn't want kids, you shouldn't be planting your seed in no one. Simple. I'm just trying to scroll down to see. Okay. Somebody else said she can keep the baby, but can't ask him for a dime. I'm just trying to see if there's a comment from a man, but hey, Samuel says, only if you don't ask for child support. If you do, after that, it's just trashy behavior, pretty much just baby trapping, massive crippling theft. So what's your views on it, Skylar?
See, in these situations, it's always so difficult because there's different perspectives based on like different situations. You know what I mean? Like if it's a thing that this couple's in a relationship or whatever, and they both know they don't want kids, and she's basically in charge of it, like let's say for instance she's on the pill, so they've agreed we're not going to use condoms, but she's taking the pill or she's got the implant or whatever.
Are they in a committed relationship?
Yeah, but they've both established they don't want kids, and if she then goes out of her way to stop taking whatever form of birth control she's taken and then not notify him and fall pregnant, and he doesn't want the kid, then I feel like he has every right to not want to.
But at the same time,
because then that's baby trapping.
But let's look at the same scenario that you've just said.
Yeah.
But she didn't deliberately stop taking it. It failed because, I don't know, she was sick.
Then they've both got to take that as it is, honestly. And I feel like in that situation, because honestly speaking, because what's she going to do if she doesn't want the kid? She can have an abortion. If he doesn't want the kid, but she does want the kid, then he can't get an abortion, but he can just take himself out of the situation. And I feel like in that sort of situation there, both parties have every right to deal with it how they want to deal with it. And not being funny, but I don't think the man is bound to stay. And the only reason I say that is because going off of a female, let's say, for instance, I knew I was sick and that I've been sick, then I'm gonna take other precautions, right? Because I know how my body works and how my birth control works, so that's on me. So I just think, honestly speaking, in the situation of if it's in the woman's hands of how the contraception is dealt with, like, as I've said, then he has every right to leave if he wants to, do whatever, the same way she has every right to have an abortion if she wants to, or keep the baby. You know what I mean? But I feel like that's in the situations, if it happens, whatever. But if these women are out here trying to baby trap men as well,
yes, which a lot of women,
I think that is so disgusting. And
you see it a lot with especially in America with the football players. You will have the situations like that where you will hear that and often it's the side chick because he already has a main woman and she's pregnant, and so then it's that thing where he'll say he's paying for the abortion, but then what happens is she'll take the money but then not get the abortion, and then the next thing he's then having to pay maintain the child financially, even if he's not physically in
and then
the child's
I feel
life.
Like in that sense, though, all men that if you ever have a affair or whatever, or you don't trust women that
just
you have
don't
sex
sleep with her,
or just strap up.
Just don't sleep with her, because you know what?
No, but I mean, I'm not just talking about the women in general, but I mean, if they have a fear of being baby trapped and stuff like that, I feel like in some of these situations where it's the woman stopping taking her birth control or whatever, I know there's such things as placing condoms and shit, but you should also be there taking the precautions you feel the needs to do if you don't want kids.
The biggest contraception, the best contraception is the word no. Because for me, if you have a fear of that, And
Yeah.
I understand. It's like this then, yeah? He might as well then go, if he can't trust the woman that he's with in that
Yeah.
respect, he might as well then just pay a prostitute
Yeah.
where he knows then it is what it is and that's it. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Because, okay, let's look at another scenario where it's not the same thing, but I read a story where a woman, she was a surrogate for a couple.
Mhm.
And I've heard several different stories. And basically, they found out that the baby was going to have have defects, birth defects.
So they said they didn't want it.
And they said they didn't want it and wanted her to terminate the pregnancy. But she didn't want to do that because she said that's a life inside of her and this, that, and the other. And so she continued on with the pregnancy and then, raised the child as her own. But, in that situation there, shouldn't she have respected the parents'
because
wishes?
that's not her child. Do you know what I mean? She's just a carrier of it. But that thing there is she has no blood link to that baby whatsoever. So in reality, I don't think she has any right.
But the thing about it is, with life, and that of a child, there's so many grey areas. There's, you can't even say there's a fine line. There's so many different scenarios where, you would look into that situation and have different views on it. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, it's no different where I've heard stories where a man has become a sperm donor and he's donated his sperm X amount of times, and then that meant in the process he fathered like 100 children, and one by one they decided to go searching for him. That's not right, because when he gave his sperm, he gave it anonymously. So then my thing is that again, so now you're expected to have a relationship with the child that you weren't, he was probably in college and wanted to,
make a bit of money.
And didn't even think 20 years
that all these fucking random people would be
just turning up and wanting to have a relationship of sorts. Do you know what I mean? And I think in that situation again, a woman, the man says they already agreed he didn't want children, and then she falls pregnant, and then she decides to raise it on her own, and he's out of the picture. So then of course that child's going to grow up with that thing of who's my dad. The same with the surrogacy. You're going to have to be honest with the child. Your parents didn't want you. And then the same with the sperm donor, like you know what I mean? It's like in situations where it concerns the child, you can't just think of yourself. You have to think of the child first and foremost, and how it may affect the child in the long run. Because yes, it's all great when you make that decision to say you're raising the child on your own, and you say, I have enough love to give a child, which nobody would doubt when a person would say that. But however, you do need two parents to give that child a balanced upbringing. And this is why, like, single parents, even when I was a single parent, like raising your brother, I looked to the men in the family to be that role model for him. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things where you would have to look into it and be so sure of what you're doing, because bringing a life into the world is not a joke. Do you know what I'm saying? And so you really have to take it seriously, that this is the person that you're bringing into this world, and you're going to be molding them. And so for selfish reasons, because that's when it concerns a decision that you're making for yourself, it is for yourself. And when I say selfish, I don't mean self-absorbed selfish. I mean, you're just thinking of yourself. You're not thinking of anybody else. Do you see what I mean? But yeah, so that's my thoughts on it anyway. Anything else? No. Not to say you didn't add.
You kind of crossed in with what I was adding. So then that's why I can't even remember what else I was saying, because I was just listing the different scenarios basically.
Yeah.
Of just like, because me personally, like what I was trying to say is, regardless of what woman it is and whatever, if you as a man know you don't want kids, to definitely make sure that just wear a condom if you're having sex. Like
But what if the condom breaks? That's my thing. What if it splits? What if?
Then you're
What if?
fucked.
What? Yeah, you see.
But
That's why I said it's better to just not.
But then that just then is that a solution? Is that really a solution?
Well, I don't know what else to say on that subject
because I know I don't want kids, but I'm still gonna have sex. You know what I mean?
For real, for real.
I hear that. It's a risk. It's a risk take. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna take your precautions, but no matter what, there's always gonna be that little chance.
Because they're not 100%. You know, foolproof. So,
but it's that thing of just communication, fam, and making your choices and being smart about it. Because no shade or anything, but the same way, like, as no shade, but it's like them situations where a guy said he wanted the baby, but the woman don't, and she wants to get an abortion. And then in that case, it's like, well, you can't force a woman to carry a child she don't want to carry. Yeah. So it's the same thing where you can't force a man to be there for a child you don't want to be there for. It goes both ways, because that would probably crush a man, maybe that he knew he had a child there, but the woman didn't want her. So really and truly,
yeah,
that's life.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, me personally, I'm glad that's not something I ever have to worry about now at this point of my life. So to everybody out there, if you're planning on having a family, make sure that everybody's on the same page, the same book, the same chapter. Yeah. And if I think a lot of the time you have to go by somebody's character at the end of the day. So if you know that the person that you're dealing with is just for that time and not for a lifetime, then yeah, what's the point, But anyway, I think we'll leave it there this week. As always, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you, and I'm sending an abundance of love and light. It's goodbye from me, Michelle, and goodbye from Skylar.
Bye.
Bye.